My name is Dave Foster, and I'm about to tell you how my wife's brilliant cost-saving idea turned into the most expensive mistake of her life. It started on a Tuesday evening in our cramped suburban Maryland kitchen. I was nursing a beer and scrolling through work emails when Kira dropped her bombshell with all the casual indifference of someone announcing the weather. "Oh, by the way, I'll be sharing a room with Paulie at the conference next week. It's cheaper for the company." I looked up from my phone, certain I'd misheard. "Come again?" Kira didn't even glance up from her laptop. "Paul Newman, you know, my old college boyfriend? He's my supervisor now at Henderson and Associates. The company's cutting costs, so we're doubling up on hotel rooms for the Atlanta trip." The irony wasn't lost on me that her ex shared a name with one of Hollywood's greatest heartthrobs, though this Paul Newman looked more like a discount insurance salesman with a receding hairline and an ego the size of Texas. "Let me get this straight," I said, setting down my beer with deliberate care. "You're telling me you're going to spend 3 nights in a hotel room with your ex-boyfriend, and I shouldn't be concerned because it saves the company money?" Kira finally looked up, her expression a masterpiece of manufactured innocence. "Dave, don't be ridiculous. It's completely professional. We're both adults. Adults who used to sleep together. That was 15 years ago. God, you're so insecure." I laughed. Actually laughed, because the alternative was throwing my beer at the wall. "Insecure? Honey, if I told you I was sharing a hotel room with my ex-girlfriend to save money, you'd burn the house down. That's different." "How exactly?" "Because I trust you." The audacity was breathtaking. Here she was, planning a romantic getaway with her ex, while simultaneously gaslighting me about trust. I'd always known Kira was manipulative, but this was Olympic-level stuff. "Fine," I said, pulling out my phone. "Then you won't mind if I call Lisa and tell her about your cost-saving arrangement." Lisa Newman, Paulie's wife of 12 years, mother of his 2 kids, and according to neighborhood gossip, a woman with a tongue sharp enough to cut glass. Kira's face went white. "You wouldn't." "Why not? If it's so innocent, I'm sure she'll understand. Maybe she'd even like to join you. Make it a real party." "Dave, please. You're being unreasonable." I was already dialing. Lisa picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Lisa, it's Dave Foster from down the street. Quick question. Did Paul mention he's sharing a hotel room with my wife next week?" The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, "He's what now?" "Oh, it's totally innocent. Just saving the company money. You know how expensive hotels can be." "That son of a bitch!" Lisa hissed. "He told me he was going alone." Kira was frantically gesturing for me to hang up, her professional composure cracking like ice in spring. "Actually, Lisa, I was thinking, if they can share a room to save money, maybe you and I should do the same. Split the cost of a nice bed and breakfast somewhere. What do you think?" "I think that's a fantastic idea, Dave. When were you thinking?" "How about the same weekend they're in Atlanta? We could drive up to that place in Annapolis you mentioned." Kira was shaking her head violently now, her laptop forgotten. "Perfect. I'll make the reservations. And Dave, thanks for the heads up about my dear husband's business trip." I hung up and smiled at my wife. There. Now we're all saving money. Kira's phone immediately started buzzing. Then it rang. Then it buzzed again. "Answer it," I said. "I'm sure it's just Paulie calling to discuss quarterly reports." She grabbed the phone and fled to the bedroom. Through the thin walls, I could hear her frantic whispers. "I don't know how he found out. No, we can't cancel now. Yes, he actually called your wife." I opened another beer and settled in to enjoy the show. After 15 years of marriage, I'd learned to recognize Kira's tells. The way she'd been working late, the new perfume, the sudden interest in going to the gym, the secretive phone calls she claimed were about work drama. My wife was cheating, and she was stupid enough to think I'd swallow this hotel room story. But here's the thing about underestimating your spouse. Sometimes they surprise you. 20 minutes later, Kira emerged from the bedroom looking like she'd been through a blender. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Congratulations, I said, raising my beer in a mock toast. You've managed to turn a simple business trip into a neighborhood scandal. That takes real talent. This is all your fault. My fault? I'm not the one planning a romantic getaway with my ex. It's not romantic. It's business. Then why is Paulie calling you every 30 seconds? Discussing spreadsheets? Her phone rang again. This time she answered on speaker, probably hoping I'd hear Paulie's reasonable explanation. Kira, what the hell did your husband tell Lisa? She's threatening to call my boss. He knows about the hotel, Kira said, shooting me a venomous look. How could he know? We were careful. Careful. Not professional. Careful. I stood up and walked over to Kira, taking the phone from her hand. Hey there, Paulie. Dave here. Just wanted to thank you for taking such good care of my wife. It's nice to know she'll have someone to keep her warm at night. Dave, listen, this isn't what you think. Really? Because I think you're screwing my wife and using company business as cover. Am I wrong? The line went quiet. That's what I thought. Oh, and Paulie? Lisa's making dinner reservations for our weekend getaway. Should I tell her you said hello? I hung up and tossed the phone back to Kira. You're insane, she whispered. No, sweetheart. I'm just getting started. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in 3 years, and drove straight to Lisa Newman's house. If Kira wanted to play games, I'd show her how it's done. Lisa lived in one of those perfect suburban homes that screamed, Pinterest board come to life. Manicured lawn, flower boxes, the works. But when she answered the door, she looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Dave, I was wondering when you'd show up. Rough night? You could say that. Come in. Coffee? Her kitchen was immaculate except for the stack of legal papers on the counter and what appeared to be the contents of Paul's home office scattered across the breakfast table. Doing some light reading? I asked. Lisa poured 2 cups of coffee with hands that shook slightly. After our phone call yesterday, I decided to do some investigating. Turns out my husband's been very busy. She handed me a folder thick with printouts, credit card statements, hotel receipts, restaurant bills for 2. This goes back 6 months, she said. Always the same pattern. Business trips that weren't on his calendar, dinners at romantic restaurants, hotels that charged for champagne service. I flipped through the papers, my anger building with each page. Son of a bitch. Oh, it gets better. Lisa pulled out her laptop and showed me Paul's Facebook page. Look at his recent activity. Photos of Kira and Paul at company events, standing just a little too close. Comments on her posts that were just a little too flirty. Check-ins at restaurants I'd never heard of, always when Kira claimed to be working late. They weren't even trying to hide it, I muttered. Men like Paul think they're smarter than everyone else. They get careless. Lisa's voice was bitter. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I looked up from the laptop. Lisa Newman was 42 years old, with the kind of sharp intelligence that comes from managing a household and 2 teenagers while married to a narcissist. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes held a fury that matched my own. What did you have in mind? Well, you mentioned a weekend getaway. I wasn't entirely joking. Neither was I. Lisa smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Good, because I've been thinking about this all night and I have some ideas. She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. Your wife posts everything on social media, doesn't she? Obsessively. Perfect. So does Paul. They love showing off their perfect lives. Lisa's fingers flew across her phone screen. What if we gave them something really worth posting about? I'm listening. The Marriott downtown, dinner at that new steakhouse, maybe a show at the Kennedy Center. Lisa looked up from her phone. All very public, all very documented. You want to make them think we're having an affair. I want to make everyone think we're having an affair. Their friends, their co-workers, their families. Let them explain that to HR. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Kira and Paul thought they were being so clever, sneaking around behind our backs, but they'd forgotten that revenge is a dish best served publicly. "There's just one problem," I said. "Won't this hurt you too? Your reputation? The kids?" Lisa's expression hardened. "Dave, my husband has been cheating on me for months. He's made me look like a fool to half the neighborhood. My reputation is already shot. I'm just too proud to admit it." She had a point. In suburban Maryland, everyone knew everyone else's business. The whispers had probably started months ago. "Besides," Lisa continued, "I'm not actually planning to sleep with you. I'm planning to make it look like I am. There's a difference. And if they call our bluff, then we cross that bridge when we come to it." I thought about Kira's face the night before, the panic in her voice when she realized I'd called Lisa. The frantic phone calls from Paul. They were scared, which meant they had something to lose. "All right," I said. "Let's do it." Lisa grinned. "Excellent. I've already made reservations for Saturday night. The Marriott has a lovely restaurant, and I hear the rooms have amazing city views." "You booked a room?" "2 rooms, actually, adjoining, but separate. I'm not completely crazy." Lisa pulled out a credit card. Paul's credit card, to be specific. The one he used to pay for all those romantic dinners with your wife. The woman was diabolical. I was starting to understand why Paul had looked elsewhere. Lisa was clearly too smart for him. "What about the kids?" "Staying with my mother. She thinks I'm having a mental breakdown and need some time away. She's not wrong. We spent the next hour planning our revenge weekend with the attention to detail of military strategists. Lisa would pick me up Saturday afternoon. We'd drive to the hotel together, making sure to be seen by as many neighbors as possible. Check in, take photos, post them strategically across social media. The key, Lisa explained, is to make it look spontaneous but document everything, like we're so caught up in passion that we can't help sharing it with the world. Won't people think that's weird? People will think we're having a midlife crisis, which, honestly, we probably are. By the time I left Lisa's house, I felt better than I had in months. For the first time since discovering Kira's affair, I wasn't the victim. I was a player in the game. That evening, Kira tried to act normal. She cooked dinner, something she hadn't done in weeks, and made small talk about her day at work. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept checking her phone. "How was your day off?" she asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "Productive. Spent some time with Lisa Newman. Nice woman. Very smart." Kira's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Oh?" "Yeah, we had coffee. Talked about marriage, trust, that sort of thing. She's going through a rough patch with Paul. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like her husband is screwing around behind her back. But what do I know? I'm just an insecure husband who doesn't understand modern business relationships." Kira set down her fork. "Dave, about the Atlanta trip. What about it? Maybe I should request a different room arrangement, just to avoid any confusion." I pretended to consider this. "Nah, don't worry about it. I'm sure everything will work out fine." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Lisa and I are taking our own little trip this weekend. Amazing what you can accomplish when you put your mind to it." Kira's face went pale. "You're not serious." "Dead serious. The Marriott downtown, very romantic. Lisa's excited. Apparently it's been a while since anyone paid attention to her." "Dave, please, you're making a mistake." "Am I? Because yesterday you told me that sharing a hotel room with your ex was perfectly innocent. I'm just following your example." Kira's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went even whiter. "Problem?" I asked. "Paul's wife is posting pictures of hotel reservations on Facebook." I pulled out my own phone and checked Lisa's page. Sure enough, she'd posted a screenshot of our hotel confirmation with the caption, "Sometimes you need to remind yourself what you're worth. Thanks to my new friend Dave for showing me that life is full of surprises. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag Marriott weekend. Hashtag sometimes you just know. The post already had 12 likes and 3 comments, including one from Kira's best friend Jill. OMG Lisa, you go girl. She tagged you, Kira whispered. So she did. I scrolled through the comments, enjoying every word. Look at that. Your coworker Heather commented too. Dave Foster is such a catch. Paul better watch out. That's sweet of her. Kira grabbed my phone, staring at the screen in horror. This is insane. You're both insane. Are we? Or are we just two people who got tired of being taken for granted? Her phone rang. Paul's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, I said. I'm curious to hear what he thinks about all this. Kira declined the call, but it immediately started ringing again. He seems upset, I observed. Maybe you should take it, discuss quarterly projections or whatever it is you two talk about. The phone rang a third time. Finally, Kira answered. What? She hissed. Even from across the table, I could hear Paul shouting. Something about Lisa losing her mind and posting crazy things on Facebook. I don't know what to tell you, Kira said. Dave knows about us. More shouting. No, I can't fix this. Your wife is having a breakdown. I reached across the table and took the phone from her hand. Hey, Paulie. Dave again. Just wanted to let you know that Lisa's really excited about our weekend. She keeps talking about how nice it'll be to spend time with a man who appreciates her. You son of a bitch! Now, that's no way to talk to your wife's new boyfriend. We're all adults here, right? That's what Kira keeps telling me. I hung up and handed the phone back to my wife. I think he's upset, I said. Maybe you should comfort him. Isn't that what work spouses do? Saturday arrived with all the fanfare of Christmas morning. I spent the day preparing for my date with Lisa, making sure every detail would be perfect for our social media debut. At 3 o'clock, Lisa pulled into my driveway in Paul's BMW, a detail that made me grin. She dressed for the occasion, black dress, heels, hair styled in a way that suggested this was a special occasion. Ready for this? She asked as I got in the car. More than ready. You look great, by the way. Thanks. I figured if we're going to cause a scandal, we might as well look good doing it. The drive downtown took 40 minutes, giving us plenty of time to review our strategy. Lisa had thought of everything, which restaurants had the best lighting for photos, which hotel lobby angles would look most romantic, even which elevator bank would give us the best chance of running into people we knew. You're terrifyingly good at this, I told her. 15 years of marriage to a narcissist teaches you a few things about manipulation. The Marriott was everything Lisa had promised. Elegant, busy, and full of the kind of people who would recognize us and spread gossip faster than wildfire. We checked in together, Lisa making a point of mentioning our special weekend, loudly enough for the desk clerk and the couple behind us to hear. Our rooms were on the 15th floor, adjoining but separate as promised. Lisa had booked the upgrade package, which meant champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries, and a view of the harbor that was genuinely spectacular. Paul's going to have a heart attack when he sees the credit card bill, Lisa said, popping the champagne cork. Speaking of Paul, shouldn't we document this moment? Lisa held up her phone. Way ahead of you. We spent the next hour staging photos that would make any Hollywood publicist proud. Lisa sitting on the bed with champagne, me looking contemplative by the window, both of us candid shots that were anything but. Each photo was carefully crafted to suggest intimacy without showing anything inappropriate. This one's my favorite, Lisa said, showing me a picture of us toasting by the window. We look like we're in love. Method acting? Something like that. By 6 o'clock, our social media campaign was in full swing. Lisa had posted 3 photos with captions that walked the line between suggestive and innocent. Sometimes the best things in life are unexpected. Grateful for new friends who remind you what you deserve. And the view is amazing, but the company is even better. Each post was getting dozens of likes and comments. Kira's friends were eating it up, especially Jill, who seemed to think Lisa was having some kind of feminist awakening. "Your phone's been buzzing nonstop," Lisa observed. I checked my messages. 17 missed calls from Kira, 12 from Paul, and a string of increasingly frantic texts. "Dave, please call me. This has gone too far. We need to talk. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? Please don't do this." "They're panicking," I told Lisa. "Good, let them panic." We went to dinner at the hotel restaurant, making sure to request a table by the window where anyone walking by could see us. Lisa had researched the menu in advance and ordered dishes that would photograph well. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her wine glass, "to making our spouses regret taking us for granted." We clinked glasses just as Lisa's phone chimed with a notification. Paul had posted on Facebook for the first time in months. "Some people will do anything for attention. Sad to see a good mother throw away her family for a midlife crisis. Praying for healing and forgiveness." "Oh, that bastard," Lisa muttered, showing me the screen. "He's trying to control the narrative, make you look like the crazy one." "Not if I control it first." Lisa's fingers flew across her phone screen. 30 seconds later, she'd posted a response. "Interesting perspective from someone who's been working late with his ex-girlfriend for 6 months. Some people project their own guilt onto others, praying for honesty and accountability. Hashtag truth hurts. Hashtag gaslighting is not love." The post included a photo of one of Paul's credit card statements showing dinner for two at a romantic restaurant on a night he'd told Lisa he was working late. "Jesus, Lisa, you're going nuclear." "He wanted to play games. I'm just better at them than he is." Within minutes, the comments started pouring in. Friends and neighbors who'd been whispering behind Lisa's back for months suddenly realized she wasn't the naive housewife they'd thought she was. My phone rang. Kira. "Don't answer it," Lisa said. "Let her sweat." But I was curious. I put the phone on speaker and answered. "Having a nice dinner?" Kira's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "Wonderful, thanks. The salmon is excellent. Lisa's having the lobster, very romantic." "Dave, this has to stop. People are starting to talk." "Are they? I hadn't noticed." Paul's boss saw the Facebook posts. He's asking questions about the Atlanta trip. "What kind of questions?" "About whether it's appropriate for employees to share hotel rooms. About company policy regarding workplace relationships." I looked at Lisa, who was grinning. This was even better than we'd hoped. "Gee, that's too bad. Maybe Paul should have thought about that before planning his romantic getaway with my wife." "It's not romantic. How many times do I have to tell you that?" "Kira, honey, I'm having dinner with a beautiful woman who appreciates my company. Can we discuss your boyfriend's work problems later?" I hung up and turned off my phone. "They're scared," Lisa said, "terrified, which means we're winning." We finished dinner in high spirits, taking more photos and posting them strategically. By the time we returned to our rooms, the social media storm was in full swing. Lisa's post about Paul's credit card statements had been shared 43 times and had over 200 comments. "I should probably call the kids," Lisa said. "Make sure they're okay." "Good idea. I'll be next door if you need anything." I settled into my room with a beer from the minibar and scrolled through the carnage on Facebook. The suburban gossip network was in overdrive. Friends were taking sides, co-workers were asking questions, and Paul and Kira were getting roasted in the comments. But the best part was watching them turn on each other. Paul had posted again, trying to distance himself from Kira. Professional relationships require trust and boundaries. Some people don't understand the difference between business and personal matters. Kira had responded with her own post. Interesting how some people rewrite history when their behavior is exposed. The truth has a way of coming out eventually. They were eating each other alive, and we hadn't even gotten to the main course yet. A knock on the adjoining door interrupted my social media browsing. Lisa peeked in, now wearing pajamas and a hotel robe. "Kids are fine," she said. "My mother thinks I've lost my mind, but the kids are fine." "Have you lost your mind?" Lisa considered this seriously. "Probably, but it feels good." "Any regrets?" "Only that I didn't do this sooner." She sat down in the chair across from me. "What about you? Having second thoughts?" I thought about Kira at home, probably pacing the kitchen and calling Paul every 5 minutes. I thought about 6 months of working late and just coffee with a friend and don't be so insecure. None whatsoever. Good, because tomorrow's going to be even more interesting. "What do you mean?" Lisa smiled. "I may have mentioned our weekend getaway to a few people at Paul's office. Apparently, Monday morning is going to be very awkward for him." The woman was absolutely ruthless. I was starting to understand why Paul had been so desperate to escape his marriage. Lisa was clearly the smarter of the two, and he knew it. "You know," I said, "under different circumstances, we might have actually made a good couple. Under different circumstances, we wouldn't have needed to." We talked until nearly midnight, about marriage, betrayal, the strange intimacy of shared revenge. Lisa was funny and sharp and completely unafraid of the chaos she was creating. It was the best conversation I'd had in years. When she finally went back to her room, I lay in bed listening to the city sounds outside my window and feeling more alive than I had in months. Tomorrow, Kira and Paul would have to face the consequences of their choices, but tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Sunday morning brought a new level of chaos. My phone, which I'd turned back on at 7 a.m., immediately exploded with notifications. Kira had called 18 times. Paul had left 12 voicemails. But more interesting were the messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old friends, former co-workers, even my mother-in-law, all wanting to know what the hell was happening. Lisa knocked on the adjoining door at 8, already dressed and holding 2 cups of coffee. "Sleep well?" she asked. "Better than I have in months." "You?" "Like a baby. A vindictive, slightly unhinged baby, but still." She handed me one of the coffees. "Check your Facebook. Things got interesting overnight." I opened the app and immediately understood what she meant. Our little suburban drama had gone viral, at least within our social circle. The original posts had been shared dozens of times, and the comment threads were approaching internet flame war status. But the real entertainment was watching Paul and Kira's panic play out in real time. Paul had posted and deleted at least 3 different explanations for the Atlanta trip. Kira had gone radio silent after posting a single, cryptic message. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than it appears. "They're falling apart," I observed. "It gets better. Look at this." Lisa showed me a screenshot of a group text between her, Kira, and 3 of their mutual friends. The conversation had started at 6 a.m., with Jill asking if Lisa was having a breakdown or a breakthrough. Lisa's response was pure genius. "Neither. Just finally putting myself first for once. Amazing what happens when you stop accepting less than you deserve." "You're enjoying this way too much," I told her. Damn right I am. 15 years of being the perfect wife while my husband screwed around behind my back. I've earned a little revenge. We had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, making sure to sit at the same window table as the night before. Lisa had dressed carefully again, not trying too hard, but clearly making an effort. The kind of outfit that suggested a woman rediscovering her confidence. "Photos?" she asked, pulling out her phone. "Absolutely." We documented our breakfast with the same attention to detail as the night before. Lisa posted a picture of our table with the caption, "Sunday morning views. Some conversations are worth losing sleep over. Hashtag new perspectives. Hashtag sometimes. You just know." The post got 30 likes in the first 10 minutes. "We should probably head back soon," I said, checking the time. "Reality awaits. One more stop first." Lisa drove us to a small park overlooking the harbor, the kind of romantic spot that couples visited for proposal photos and anniversary pictures. She parked Paul's BMW where it would be clearly visible from the walking path. "Final scene," she explained, "the money shot." We walked to the railing overlooking the water, Lisa taking my arm in a gesture that looked natural and intimate. The morning light was perfect, and Lisa's photographer's eye found the exact angle that would make the photo look like something from a romance novel. "You know," I said as she lined up the shot, "if someone told me a week ago that I'd be staging fake romantic photos with my neighbor's wife, I'd have thought they were crazy. If someone told me a week ago that my husband was planning a romantic getaway with his ex-girlfriend, I'd have thought the same thing." The photo she captured was genuinely beautiful. Two people looking out at the water, close enough to suggest intimacy, far enough apart to maintain plausible deniability. Lisa posted it immediately with a simple caption: "Sometimes the best views require taking a leap of faith." By the time we got back to our neighborhood, the post had 47 likes and 12 comments, including one from Paul's sister asking if Lisa was dating someone new. "This is where it gets interesting," Lisa said as we pulled into my driveway. Kira's car was in the garage, but I could see her silhouette in the kitchen window. She'd been watching for us. "Want to come in?" I asked. "Meet the wife?" "Wouldn't miss it." We walked up to my front door together, Lisa still carrying the small overnight bag that suggested she'd spent the night. As I put my key in the lock, I could hear Kira's footsteps rushing toward us. The door opened before I could turn the key. "Dave." Kira's voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. She looked like she hadn't slept, hair messy, still wearing yesterday's clothes, eyes red from crying or rage or both. "Hey, honey. Great weekend. You remember Lisa from down the street?" Lisa stepped forward with a smile that could have cut glass. "Hi, Kira. Thanks for letting me borrow your husband. He's wonderful company." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Kira's face went through several expressions: shock, rage, disbelief, before settling on something that looked like defeat. "We need to talk," she said to me, ignoring Lisa entirely. "Of course. Lisa, thanks for an amazing weekend. We should do it again soon." "Definitely. I'll call you later." Lisa leaned in and kissed my cheek, a gesture that was perfectly innocent and absolutely devastating in context. Then she walked back to Paul's BMW and drove away, leaving Kira and me standing in the doorway. "Inside," Kira said. "Now." I followed her into the kitchen where I could see she'd been camping out all weekend. Coffee cups, tissues, her laptop open to Facebook, her phone plugged in and surrounded by charging cables. "Sit down," she said. "I'm fine standing." "Dave, please. We need to talk about this like adults." "Adults? That's rich coming from someone who's been sneaking around with her ex for 6 months. Kira's composure cracked slightly. "How did you—" "No? Credit card statements, restaurant receipts, hotel bookings that weren't on your calendar?" Lisa's very thorough when she sets her mind to something. "You went through our financial records?" "Our records? Sweetheart, half of everything in this house is mine, including the credit cards you've been using to finance your affair." Kira sat down heavily at the kitchen table. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely defeated. "It's not what you think," she said quietly. "Really? What is it then?" "It's complicated." "Complicated how? You're either sleeping with him or you're not." We haven't actually slept together, not yet." "Not yet? So this weekend was going to be the big moment?" Kira nodded, tears starting to fall. "Dave, I'm sorry. I know how this looks, but it's not. I never meant for it to happen." "But it did happen. You made choices, Kira. You chose to lie to me. You chose to sneak around. You chose to plan a romantic weekend with another man." "I was going to tell you." "When? After you got back from Atlanta? After you'd slept with him?" "I don't know. I was confused. Paul and I have history, And when he came back into my life, all these old feelings came back, and I didn't know how to handle it. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no desire to fix things. Just a cold, empty space where my love for her used to be. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to pack a bag and go stay with your sister. Tomorrow, you're going to call a lawyer. We're getting divorced." "Dave, please, I'm not finished. You're also going to call Paul and tell him that his wife knows everything, about the restaurants, the hotels, the secret phone calls, all of it. Lisa has documentation going back 6 months. Kira's face went white. "She can't prove anything." "Can't she? Credit card statements are pretty good proof. So are the photos she took of you and Paul at the Riverside restaurant last month." "What photos?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture Lisa had taken through the restaurant window. Kira and Paul holding hands across a table, looking very much like a couple on a date. "Lisa's been watching you two for weeks. She knew about the affair before I did." "This is insane. You're both insane." "Maybe, but we're not cheaters." Kira stared at the photo, her last hope of denial crumbling. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to leave. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done, and I want you to stay away from Lisa's family." "What about Paul?" "What about him? You made your choice. Live with it." Kira stood up slowly, like an old woman. "Dave, I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out." "No, we can't. This isn't a mistake, Kira. This is who you are. You're someone who lies to her husband and sneaks around with other men. I can't be married to someone like that." She started to cry then. Real tears, not the manipulative kind she'd used on me for years. But it was too late. I'd already grieved for our marriage during those long nights when she was working late. "I'll pack a bag," she whispered. "Good. I'll be at Sam's if you need anything." Sam Patel had been my best friend since college, a mechanic with a garage downtown and a wife who made the best curry in Maryland. He'd been telling me for months that Kira was trouble, and I'd been too proud to listen. I drove to Sam's shop and found him under the hood of a Honda Civic, cursing in 3 languages. "Dave, what brings you here on a Sunday?" "My wife's having an affair. I spent the weekend with my neighbor's wife staging fake romantic photos to make our spouses jealous, and I just asked for a divorce." Sam slid out from under the car and stared at me. "Come again?" I told him the whole story, the hotel room plan, Lisa's revenge scheme, the social media war, everything. By the time I finished, Sam was grinning like a maniac. "You magnificent bastard," he said. "You actually did it." "Did what?" "Beat them at their own game. I've been waiting for you to grow a backbone for months. Thanks for the vote of confidence." "Dave, I'm serious. Kira's been walking all over you for years. It was painful to watch. Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened?" He had a point. I'd been so invested in making my marriage work that I'd ignored every red flag. "So, what now?" Sam asked. "Now I figure out how to rebuild my life. Starting with a good lawyer. I know a guy, handled my cousin's divorce. Absolute shark." We sat around Sam's kitchen table like we were mapping out a heist, except the prize wasn't money and the target wasn't a vault. It was my own dignity. And the defenses weren't lasers or locks. They were lies written in calm fonts with confident signatures. Sam had his laptop open with a spreadsheet already started, columns labeled with the kind of practicality that made your chest loosen a little. Accounts, dates, witnesses, documents, screenshots, next actions. He was the type of friend who didn't waste time asking if you were okay in a way that invited collapse. He asked what you needed, and then he built a plan. Priya moved around the kitchen with a quiet efficiency, sliding plates onto the counter, checking a simmering pot, listening while she pretended she wasn't listening, which made her the most dangerous person in the room because she was absorbing everything without inserting herself into the chaos. When she finally sat down with a bowl of dinner in front of her, her eyes were bright with that sharp curiosity some people have when they're watching a story unfold that isn't theirs. The fascination of someone safe enough to enjoy the drama, but empathetic enough to want the protagonist to win. So, Sam said, tapping the screen, we do this in order. Lawyer first, because anything you say or do from this point forward can be reframed. You want a clean channel of communication and a clean record. I nodded. My head felt heavy, but it also felt clear in a way it hadn't in months. Kira leaving had been an emotional explosion, but once the door closed behind her, the world didn't end. It got quieter. And in that quiet, the next steps stopped feeling impossible. Financial records, Sam continued scrolling. We pull bank statements, credit card statements, mortgage history, any shared accounts. We make copies, digital and physical. We log everything. If she tries to claim you were controlling, you want numbers that show access and spending. And documentation of the affair, I added, because saying it out loud made it real, made it something I could handle like evidence instead of a wound. Sam's mouth tightened. Exactly. But we do it clean. No hacking. No illegal stuff. What you already have? Anything she left in plain view. Anything you can obtain through lawful discovery. Screenshots, dates, call logs if they're yours, any proof that shows timelines. The point isn't to humiliate her. The point is to protect you. Priya, who had been quiet until then, set her spoon down and leaned forward as if she was about to comment on a movie plot twist. And you don't talk to her alone again, she said, voice calm but certain. Not in person, not on the phone, not where she can provoke you and then claim you threatened her. You keep everything written, even if she says it's cold. I looked at her and felt a sudden wave of gratitude. Priya wasn't my friend in the same automatic way Sam was, but she was the kind of person who cared about truth, and truth was rare in the aftermath of betrayal. We're filing tomorrow, I said. My lawyer's already lined up. Sam nodded approvingly, and Priya's eyebrows lifted. Good, she said. Because if Kira thinks she can rewrite the story later, she's going to try. People like that always do. She said it lightly, but I could tell she meant it. Then she smiled, and the mood shifted just a little, like she was intentionally changing the channel before my brain drowned in logistics. This Lisa sounds like a smart woman, Priya said, and her tone was innocently conversational, but her eyes were too sharp for innocence. Sam groaned. Priya. What? She asked, wide-eyed, as if she hadn't just tossed a match into a room full of gasoline. He said she helped him. She came up with the plan. She handled it like a chess player. I'm allowed to be impressed. Terrifyingly smart, I admitted, because it was true. Lisa had moved through the whole thing like she'd studied the rule book and then rewritten it. And attractive? Priya asked, as if she was inquiring about the weather. Priya, Sam warned again, but there was no real heat in his voice, because this was how she loved people, by teasing the tension out of their shoulders with a needle. I'm just saying, Priya continued, smiling as if she had all the time in the world. If Dave's getting divorced anyway, it's not like that, I protested too quickly. This was just revenge. We're not actually involved. Of course not, Priya said, the kind of knowing smile that made you feel like she'd just read your private diary. But hypothetically, if you were... I'm not ready for hypotheticals, I said, and it sounded like a boundary, but it also sounded like fear. Priya lifted her hands in surrender. Fair, she said. No hypotheticals. Just, you deserve someone who sees you. That's all. Sam cleared his throat and returned to the spreadsheet like a man trying to restore order after an earthquake. Okay, he said. Next, housing. Is the house in both names? Who's on the mortgage? Who pays what? If she moved out, we document the date. We keep proof she left voluntarily. I answered questions while my mind kept drifting, like a magnet pulling toward the one thought I hadn't allowed myself to touch. Lisa. The way she'd looked at Paul across that dinner table, not with hysterics, not with begging, but with a calm certainty that made him smaller without her raising her voice, The way she'd joked with me, the kind of humor that wasn't cruel, but was precise, like a scalpel disguised as a punchline. The way she'd listened when I spoke, really listened, like my words were worth holding. When the planning session finally ended and I stood at Sam's front door, I felt steadier than I had when I arrived. Sam clasped my shoulder in that simple, brotherly way that meant more than 1,000 speeches. "You're going to be fine," he said. "I don't know about fine," I replied honestly. "Better," he corrected. "You're going to be better." Priya handed me a container of leftovers like it was a talisman. "Eat," she ordered. "You'll make bad decisions if you don't eat. And get sleep. You'll make even worse decisions if you don't sleep." I promised I would, then stepped into the cool evening air and walked to my car, the street quiet, the sky darkening into that soft, early night blue that always made everything feel suspended between endings and beginnings. As I drove home, the city lights slid past, and my mind finally did what it had been resisting all afternoon. It started replaying Lisa in fragments, not as a fantasy, but as a presence. Her posture, her voice, the way she'd leaned back in her chair after she'd delivered a line that made Paul blink, as if she was enjoying the silence as much as I was. The way she'd made me laugh, a real laugh, the kind that surprised me because I'd forgotten my body could do it without guilt. My phone buzzed, and when I saw her name, my heartbeat stumbled in a way that felt annoyingly teenage. "How did it go with Kira?" Lisa's text asked. "She's staying with her sister," I typed back. "Divorce papers being filed tomorrow." "I'm sorry it came to that." "I'm not," I replied, and as soon as I sent it, I realized it was true. The grief was there, sure, but beneath it was relief so clean it felt like sunlight. "What about you and Paul?" "He's at his mother's," Lisa wrote back. "Apparently I'm having a mental breakdown and need professional help." "Are you?" "Probably," she replied. "But it's the best mental breakdown I've ever had." I laughed out loud in the car, a short bark of amusement that felt like the first crack in a long winter. I pictured her saying it, eyes bright, mouth curved in that half-smile she wore when she was daring the world to underestimate her. I was still smiling when I pulled into my driveway. The house was dark and empty, no light in the living room, no glow from the kitchen, no noise from the television Kira used to leave on as background, no footsteps, no perfume in the air. I sat in the car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, waiting for the loneliness to hit. Instead, silence wrapped around me like a blanket. I went inside and turned on a lamp, and the living room looked strangely larger without Kira's scattered things, like the space had been holding its breath for months and had finally exhaled. A few drawers were half open, a couple of picture frames turned face down, small signs of an exit that had been rushed and angry, but there was no drama left in the air. Just emptiness. Clean, honest emptiness. I set the leftovers in the fridge and stood for a moment with the door open, cold air spilling out, then closed it and walked through the house slowly, not searching for her, not chasing closure, just familiarizing myself with the fact that I was alone in my own home again. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the messy business of untangling 15 years of shared routines and shared lies. There would be phone calls, emails, signatures. There would be moments where anger returned, moments where grief tried to bargain, moments where I'd miss the good parts and hate myself for missing them. But tonight, there was only the quiet. And in that quiet, I finally understood what freedom actually felt like. It didn't feel like celebration. It felt like peace. Monday morning brought a reckoning that exceeded even Lisa's wildest expectations. I was barely through my first cup of coffee when my phone started ringing. "Dave, it's Lisa. You need to see this." "See what?" Paul's office called him at 7 a.m. Apparently, someone sent HR screenshots of all our Facebook posts, along with copies of his credit card statements, showing the affair with Kira. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Someone?" "Anonymous tip. Very thorough. very damaging. Lisa, please tell me I didn't send anything to his HR department, but I may have mentioned our situation to my friend Janet, who happens to work in the same building. And Janet may have a very strong sense of justice when it comes to cheating husbands. The woman was absolutely diabolical. What happened? Paul's been suspended pending investigation. Apparently, the company has very strict policies about workplace relationships and misuse of company funds. Those romantic dinners he charged to his corporate card? That's a fireable offense. Jesus. It gets better. Kira's boss wants to see her first thing this morning, something about maintaining professional standards and avoiding conflicts of interest. I had to admit, I felt a twinge of satisfaction. After months of sneaking around and making me feel like the paranoid husband, they were finally facing consequences. How do you know all this? Paul called me at 6 a.m., screaming about how I'd ruined his career. Apparently his boss is very disappointed and the whole office is talking about it. What did you tell him? I told him that actions have consequences, and maybe he should have thought about his career before he decided to cheat on his wife. My phone beeped with another call. Kira. I should take this, I told Lisa. Call me later. This is just getting started. I switched to Kira's call. What? Dave, please, you have to help me. Help you with what? My boss knows about Paul. Someone sent her copies of the Facebook posts and photos of us together. She's talking about termination. That's unfortunate. Dave, I could lose my job. We have a mortgage, car payments. We don't have anything, Kira. You made that choice when you decided to cheat. This is all Lisa's fault. That psycho bitch is trying to destroy our lives. No, sweetheart. You destroyed your own life. Lisa just documented it. You have to make her stop. Make her stop what? Telling the truth? Kira started crying again. Dave, please, I know I made mistakes, but this is too much. Paul could lose everything. Good. What? I said good. Paul's a married man who's been screwing around with other men's wives. Maybe losing his job will teach him some consequences. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, the shark Sam had recommended. His name was Marcus Thompson, and his reputation for destroying cheating spouses in divorce court was legendary. Mr. Foster, Marcus said when I reached him, I've been expecting your call. You have? Your friend Sam filled me in on the situation. Quite the weekend you had. It's been educational. I'll bet. Here's what we're going to do. First, I need you to document everything. The affair, the financial records, any evidence of your wife's infidelity. Second, we're going to file for divorce on grounds of adultery, which in Maryland gives us significant advantages in property division. What kind of advantages? The kind that ensure your cheating wife doesn't get half of everything you've worked for. I spent the morning gathering evidence with the thoroughness of a federal investigator. Credit card statements, phone records, photos, social media posts. Everything that proved Kira's affair with Paul. By the time I was finished, I had enough documentation to fill a banker's box. At noon, Lisa called again. Paul just left the house with 2 suitcases, she reported. Apparently, his mother thinks he needs time to reflect on his choices. Where's he going? Extended stay hotel near his office, or what used to be his office. Hard to say if he'll still have a job by the end of the week. And Kira? Haven't heard from her since this morning, but I did get an interesting call from Jill. Jill was Kira's best friend and biggest enabler, the kind of woman who thought having an affair was empowering as long as you didn't get caught. What did she want? To tell me I was taking things too far and that I should think about the consequences of my actions. What did you tell her? I told her that I'd been thinking about consequences for 6 months while her best friend was screwing my husband, and that maybe Jill should have given Kira the same advice about thinking before acting. How did she take that? She hung up on me, but not before I heard her telling someone in the background that I'd completely lost it. Have you? Lisa was quiet for a moment. You know what, Dave? Maybe I have lost it. But losing it feels a hell of a lot better than being the perfect wife who pretends not to notice when her husband comes home smelling like another woman's perfume. That afternoon, I met with Marcus Thompson in his downtown office. He was exactly what Sam had promised, a shark in an expensive suit with the kind of predatory smile that made cheating spouses reach for their checkbooks. This is excellent work, he said, reviewing my evidence. Your wife's affair is thoroughly documented, and her lover's use of company resources makes this even better. How so? Because it shows a pattern of deception and poor judgment that extends beyond just the personal. Judges don't like people who lie and cheat, especially when they're stupid about it. What's our strategy? Simple. We file for divorce, demand she vacate the marital home, and ask for temporary spousal support, from her to you, given that her actions caused the breakdown of the marriage. Can we do that? Maryland is still a fault-based divorce state. Adultery matters here, especially when it's this well documented. Marcus walked me through the process with the efficiency of someone who'd destroyed hundreds of marriages. Papers would be filed by the end of the week. Kira would be served at her sister's house. The financial discovery process would begin immediately. One more thing, Marcus said as I was leaving. This Lisa Newman, she's also getting divorced? That's the plan. She might want to coordinate with us. Her husband's affair with your wife actually strengthens both cases. I called Lisa from the parking garage. Marcus thinks we should coordinate our divorces. Apparently, Paul and Kira's affair helps both our cases. Great minds think alike. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow morning. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. It's amazing how liberating it is to stop pretending everything's fine. I know the feeling. Dave, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you regret it? The whole revenge thing? I thought about it seriously. A week ago, I'd been the clueless husband making excuses for his wife's behavior. Now, I was filing for divorce and watching my cheating spouse face the consequences of her actions. Not for a second, I said. What about you? My only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. That evening, I had dinner alone in my kitchen for the first time in 15 years. No Kira working late, no tense conversations about her friendship with Paul, no walking on eggshells around her mood swings. Just me, a beer, and the satisfying knowledge that tomorrow would bring fresh chaos for the people who'd tried to make a fool of me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Paul. We need to talk. I showed the message to Sam when he called to check on me. What are you going to do? He asked. Nothing. Let him sweat. Good call. Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Sun Tzu? Napoleon, but the principle's the same. Paul called 3 more times that evening. I didn't answer. Whatever he wanted to say, I wasn't interested in hearing it. The time for talking had passed. At 11 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Paul standing on my front porch, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Dave, please, we need to talk about this situation. What situation? You know what situation. This whole thing with our wives, the Facebook posts, the office drama. It's gotten out of hand. Has it? People are losing their jobs. Kira might get fired. My career is in ruins. Lisa's telling everyone in the neighborhood that I'm a cheater. Aren't you? Paul stopped mid-sentence. What? A cheater. Aren't you a cheater who's been screwing my wife for 6 months? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're married. She's married. You've been sneaking around behind your spouse's backs. That makes you cheaters. Dave, come on. We're both adults here. These things happen. Do they? Because in my world, when you make a commitment to someone, you keep it. Paul ran his hand through his thinning hair. Look, I know you're upset. Upset? Paul, I'm not upset. I'm impressed. Impressed with how spectacularly you've managed to destroy your own life. It takes real talent to lose your job, your wife, and your reputation all in the same week. This is all Lisa's fault. She's the one who started posting crazy things on Facebook. Lisa didn't make you cheat on her. Lisa didn't make you lie about business trips. Lisa didn't make you charge romantic dinners to your company credit card. She's trying to ruin me. No, Paul, you ruined yourself. Lisa just made sure everyone knew about it. Paul's composure finally cracked completely. You son of a bitch! You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, let me tell you something. Kira never loved you. She told me she's been miserable for years. Then she should have asked for a divorce instead of sneaking around like a coward. She was going to leave you. After Atlanta, we were going to tell you both. Well, now you don't have to. Problem solved. Paul stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You're not even fighting for her. Fight for what? A woman who's been lying to me for months? A woman who was planning to humiliate me in front of the entire neighborhood? Why would I fight for that? Because she's your wife. No, Paul, she was my wife. Now she's just another cheater facing the consequences of her choices. I started to close the door, but Paul put his hand against it. Dave, please, we can work this out. Call off Lisa, drop the divorce, and we can all move on. Move on? To what? You living in a hotel because your wife kicked you out? Kira staying with her sister because I won't let her back in my house? Both of you probably losing your jobs because you were too stupid to keep your affair private? It doesn't have to be like this. You're right. It didn't have to be like this. You could have gotten divorced before starting a new relationship. You could have been honest with your spouses. You could have acted like decent human beings. But we didn't, and now here we are. Paul's shoulders sagged in defeat. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything from you, Paul. I want you to leave my property and never come back. I want you to stay away from Lisa and her kids. And I want you to live with the consequences of what you've done. And if I don't? Then you'll find out what Lisa and I can accomplish when we really put our minds to it. Paul stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to his rental car. I watched him drive away, then locked the door and poured myself a drink. My phone rang. Lisa. I saw Paul's car in your driveway, she said. Everything okay? Fine. He wanted to negotiate. What did you tell him? I told him that negotiation requires having something to offer. He's got nothing. How do you feel? I thought about it. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the paranoid husband making excuses for his wife's behavior. Not the fool being played by people who thought they were smarter than him. I feel free, I said. Good, because tomorrow's going to be interesting. What happens tomorrow? Kira and Paul's company is conducting their investigation. Apparently, they take workplace relationships very seriously, especially when company funds are involved. And I may have provided them with some additional documentation about Paul's expense reports. Lisa, what? I'm just a concerned citizen helping ensure corporate accountability. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The whole situation was so absurd. Two cheaters who'd thought they were so clever, brought down by their own arrogance and their spouse's superior planning. You're terrifying, I told her. Thank you. I consider that a compliment. We talked for another hour, planning the next phase of our respective divorces and comparing notes on our lawyers' strategies. By the time I hung up, I was genuinely excited about the future for the first time in years. The next morning brought the final act of our suburban drama. Kira called at 8 a.m. sobbing. Dave, they fired me. Who fired you? Henderson and Associates. They said my personal conduct violated company policy and created a hostile work environment. What about Paul? Fired yesterday. They're considering pressing charges for misuse of company funds. That's unfortunate. Dave, please. I have nowhere to go. My sister can't let me stay much longer, I don't have a job, and my lawyer says the divorce is going to be expensive. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. No, Kira. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or missing an appointment. What you did was make a series of deliberate choices to betray your marriage and lie to your husband. What am I supposed to do now? Figure it out. You're a smart woman. I'm sure you'll think of something. I hung up and immediately called Lisa. It's over, I told her. They're both fired. I heard. Paul's moving back in with his mother. Apparently the hotel was too expensive. What about you? Any regrets now that it's all said and done? Lisa was quiet for a moment. You know what, Dave? I keep waiting to feel guilty about destroying their lives. But all I feel is relieved. Relieved? For months I felt like I was going crazy. Paul was lying to me, your wife was lying to you, and we were both pretending everything was normal. Now the truth is out, and we can all stop pretending. So what happens now? Now we rebuild. New lives, new relationships, new everything. Speaking of new relationships, Dave Foster, are you asking me out? I'm asking if you'd like to have dinner sometime. A real dinner, not a revenge dinner. I thought you'd never ask. 6 months later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce papers. Kira had agreed to a settlement that gave her almost nothing. The adultery evidence was too strong, and her lawyer had advised her to take what she could get. Congratulations, Marcus said, shaking my hand. You're officially a free man. How does it feel? Sam asked when I called him from the parking lot. Like I can breathe again. That evening, Lisa and I had dinner at the same restaurant where she and I had staged our first revenge date. But this time, it wasn't for show. This time, it was real. Any regrets? She asked over dessert. About the divorce? None. About us? I looked across the table at this remarkable woman who'd helped me reclaim my life and my self-respect. Lisa Newman was smart, funny, beautiful, and absolutely ruthless when crossed. She was everything Kira had never been. My only regret, I said, is that it took so long to figure out what I really wanted. And what's that? Someone who's actually worth fighting for. Lisa smiled. Good answer. As we walked out of the restaurant, I thought about Paul and Kira. Paul was living with his mother and working at a car dealership, his career in corporate management effectively over. Kira had moved to another state to live with her cousin, still unemployed and still bitter about the consequences of her choices. They'd thought they were so clever, sneaking around behind our backs. They'd underestimated their spouses, and it had cost them everything. Penny for your thoughts, Lisa said as we got in the car, just thinking about how much my life has changed. Better or worse? Infinitely better. Even though it cost you your marriage? Lisa, my marriage ended the day Kira decided to cheat. I just didn't know it yet. She reached over and took my hand. For what it's worth, I think you handled it perfectly. We handled it perfectly. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Partners in crime, partners in justice. As we drove home through our quiet suburban neighborhood, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us together. A year ago, I'd been the oblivious husband making excuses for his wife's behavior. Now I was free, happy, and in love with a woman who was actually worth my time. Kira had been right about one thing. Sometimes the best things in life are unexpected. She just hadn't expected them to happen to me.